Hello. It's always good to be sitting with everyone. It's a great place. I always love coming up here. I love how Dawn introduces me all the time. I kind of blush. I'm not used to stuff like that. So, how's everyone doing?
Great, wonderful.
Well, that wraps it up for me then. I was hoping for that. So you folks are lucky to have this group meeting here. It's really sweet. Down below, stuff like this doesn't really happen too often, where everyone gets together and meets in a nice group like this, like-minded folks. So it's really sweet. Congratulations. And everyone got through all the stuff that happened over the summer, the heat and the fires and earthquakes. You know, it's like right. Really interesting. Alaska's coming into a new energetic field, so we got to roll with the punch, right? Yeah. So I always have fun to think of a topic. Dawn really gets me in these different directions. So this week it's the joy of being content. Interesting concept, but it segues into a whole avenue of what's going on for us individually, right? And how do we respond to the world? So, interesting thought. A lot of people, I've been doing energy healing since 1980. I was very blessed to stumble into the first holistic college in the United States that was offering degrees. It's called Hartwood College of the Healing Arts in Santa Cruz, California, right? Where we all ran around naked for the whole time in class. It was quite an experience. But it was, you know, as I'm sure a lot of you, all of you, part-time, full-time, have dealt with a lot of stuff on your own personal agenda in your life. And I find being content is such a beautiful spiritual concept. It's deep into the yoga tradition, so we don't make a fuss over things that are going on, and we accept whatever Spirit gives us with grace and with love and with a smile on our face and with joy. So it's really, it segues into how we get all flustered often, or we get pissed off, upset. I use that instead of pissed off. But really it's pissed off. You know, about different situations that occur in our life. And sometimes that button is very close to the surface with many, many people. And something happens and we're running around like a crazy person, right? And we get all, that button gets pushed and it throws our equilibrium completely off. And then how long does it take to come back to a place of being neutral, what I'll call being neutral? So accepting what Spirit gives us on a daily basis with peace and easiness circumvents all of that. And once we transform that vibration of being upset, life changes for us. Then we have a tendency to smile more, right? And we're at peace more. So it's a very positive, wonderful concept that we can roll through our head and then let it filter down into our whole being. So we get upset for many reasons. And that's where the segue goes into for us to self-evaluate and to look at your stuff, end quote, and breathe. You know, the old original technique, if something comes up, breathe. And then we can move into a place of peace. So really, contentment brings us to peace, and peace brings us to joy, and joy brings us to bliss, and bliss brings us to spirit. So we have choice. We could stay in the dysfunctional place of our negative emotional states that pop up, or we could move into another energetic frequency that brings us into a whole nother level of easiness. It's interesting, right? The transition is very simple. We just have to breathe, really. Once we begin that process of, in quote, letting go with the breath, then we realize, oh, it's not that important. Whatever it was that triggered us is just an old frequency. Right? We all know those old frequencies, right? Most of the time, the old frequencies that we're programmed with come from our family. Yay to our dysfunctional, crazy families. Yay! Right? But we all kind of have that occurring, right? Things like this finger that came out. We talked about this yesterday, in fact. You know, when we saw this finger come from our parents, it was never, oh, you're such a sweet child. Often you heard your middle name. Uh-oh, I am in deep doo-doo here, right? So that's really where a lot of the trigger into the insanity, I'm going to call it, because it really is crazy to get upset all the time, right? You know, we have many situations. We're driving down the road. Someone doesn't like the way you change lanes. You get the bird. And you go, oh my God, right? Why did that happen? You know, what's going on? But it's, you know, other people have, or all of us, we all have this trigger, boom, right? And that trigger gets hit, and it really just means that the cup of dysfunction is filled up for those people. And, you know, that one extra drop spills over, and then all hell breaks loose for people. It's really kind of sad that, you know, we get triggered and we become violent so much, or halfway violent with all the things that occur in life. So being content, going back to being content, just eases the entire human experience. We need to have it taught in school a lot better. This is a topic that we have to wait till we get out of school to learn about, right? But by the time we get out of school, those things are in place. So, this community that you all formed here is really great because it's very supportive. And that's one of the ways to heal things, is with community that supports us. So we have people we can talk to, and we have friends, and we could say how we got triggered about this, that, and the other thing, and we're not going to be judged, right? And that's part of the whole healing. So it's really about frequency and vibration. As we go into a different frequency, like for example, the frequency of anger is, right? And this is what we respond. We get red in the face, and the bird comes out, and we go crazy. The frequency of joy, it's like the 30 seconds of silence that we started with here today. It's soft, it's kind, it's gentle, where everything is integrated. So moving toward that definitely makes life a lot easier. Questions? Come on. Ask me some questions. I do better with questions.
This all makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm trying to remember like moments when I get really triggered. Then that seems to be very kind of far away. Do you have any hint or something that like when you get really triggered, like everybody has a few little things that really trigger and you just not yourself anymore, or in that moment, how do you use that in that very moment? What can you give me some hint of?
Yes, we have triggers up and down our arm, and they get pressed and they get pushed. Do you have kids?
No.
Oh, well, if you have kids, you know what I'm talking about. Because your children will come up to you and go, oh, button number 14 is available. Right? And then that happens instantaneously. We're off, into our insanity. So one of the ways to combat that is to do what I would call a practice every day, or as often as you can. In the morning is the best time to do it. 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. is the best time in the morning because that's the quietest time. And we simply do a technique of chakra clearing. You're all familiar with chakras, right? The energy centers that we have that operate everything on a subtle basis. So if we come up the front, tailbone, pubic bone, belly, chest, throat, third eye, crown. And then go down the back. Crown, back of the head, neck, in between the scapulas, the arch of the back, sacrum, and tailbone. So it's a cosmic loop. That's what we can call it. Up the front, specifically beginning up the front and down the back. Saying hello to every chakra. Every day, at least once a day. You want to start with about 11 rounds. One round is up the front and down the back. Right? And this will begin to really transform your frequency. It's very simple, very, very powerful. It will transform your frequency, and it'll allow for all the dysfunction or insanity to just dissipate. Right? And if you do it in the morning, getting up from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. is a little strange, I realize that. But so you might get up at 6 or 7 and do it when you get up, right? The ideal time is when it's the quietest. And if you do this every day, in a little bit of time, you're going to notice, oh, those buttons are not available because I'm finding peace. So it's really a practice of peace. See, right now, we're not practicing peace, most people. Right? We get up, we have our coffee, and we go through our day, and sometimes we get triggered, right? So if we're getting triggered and, we're going off, right, and really getting upset, which happens often to a lot of people, right? Then we have to practice something to counteract that. So the practice of peace, as I call it, will totally change that inner core, right? And you'll find yourself much more at ease. You'll find yourself going, oh, that wasn't that bad, right? And you'll be able to deal with the buttons being pushed. They won't be being pushed, right? Yeah, so that's a very, very good technique. Practice. Who wants to practice that? Right? Just come, and you start at the tailbone and come up. Now, as you're hitting each energy center or chakra, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to think about anything. You don't have to have anything in your mind. You're just saying hello. Hello, tailbone. Hello, pubic bone. Hello, belly, chest, throat. And in this process, it's really, really amazing how you will discover peace. And once you get the peace going, the insanity starts to leave.
Can we do it laying down?
You could do it laying down. You could do it sitting in a chair. You don't have to be in a full lotus, You don't have to wear a turban, We could leave all that behind. It's just a practice of peace. And you will be amazed at how this will completely change your entire life. Because you will, instead, how often do you get triggered into that? Daily?
No, but every once in a while.
Once in a while, once a week? Okay. So, and then, when we get triggered like that, how long does it take us to come back, right? It could take days, right? The one trigger could set us off. I know people that go into the abyss for a month. They get triggered, something ridiculous. That appears like it's ridiculous to me, but it triggers an old memory. And boom, they're insane, and they go right down into the well, deep into the well. Can't talk to them. You can't do anything with them because they're booga, booga, booga. They're going crazy, right? And then how long, see, the thing with the trigger is how long does it take to come out of it, right? Some people, if they're lucky, it just can take 30 minutes and they can snap out of it. Other people, it's weeks, it's even months, right? So that's the part that we want to really work on. And the daily practice of peace really does that. So give that a shot, right? And again, from all the energy healing that we do, the reason I'm going up the front first is because that's the way energy comes into us. It's through the front of the body, from the feet up and in. And then it circulates and goes down and out through the back. So we do this loop. You can call it a cosmic loop. You can call it whatever you want. You can call it a chakra balance. But up the front, down the back. Give it work with it, okay?
And then when you feel like you're being triggered, when you feel it coming on, do it.
If you remember.
What's your trigger? It's kind of just.
Yeah, I mean, we're attempting to not get triggered.
Right.
That's the whole idea.
See it coming and avoid it.
Yes, sir.
I like your description. There are some situations that, are more than just a button push. It might be a
someone breaks up with us in a relationship, maybe we get fired from our job, we suffer the loss of a loved one in death. Big things. And sometimes those situations can create months-long depression. Is it the same answer, or are there additional tools you think of to kind of regain one's balance and of contentment that one had prior to maybe one of those events occurring that can tend to send us down for a while?
From my perspective, it's the same answer. See, if you start to practice the peace, then whatever comes along is not going to impact you in a negative way like it might have in the past. Right, so I keep it really, really simple. You have to keep it simple. If you could simplify the process, then, you don't have to wind up seeking out Dr. Phil, and do that process for however long that takes. Keep it simple. So it's whether you get triggered from your kid or whether you get triggered from a huge loss like you were saying. If you're practicing this orbit, this cosmic orbit, and you're practicing peace, you'll be really amazed at how quick, I'd say within a week, everything will start to change for the better. Yeah.
So I get the feeling that whether it's a trigger, a physical trigger, I get the feeling that you're saying that it not only works physically, but the same practice works mentally, emotionally, and indeed spiritually to get somebody back on in present time and be here now kind of peace that we all have the potential of carrying around.
Exactly.
And there's no degrees of peace, isn't there? Or is there?
No, peace is peace.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I didn't hear.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not level one peace. Something's going on there. Right. You have to come back for advanced peace. Right, but I feel you hit the nail on the head there because it does work to reconnect us to spirit, right? That simple technique. And that's probably the greatest thing we have to balance out in our life is to reconnect to spirit in a way that is grounded and it's easy to do and we feel it, right? You start feeling that connection every day, which this technique will do, and then you're back on track. Now, there's a reason that we disconnect from spirit. It's called trauma. Trauma will always disconnect us from spirit. Trauma comes in many different levels. It could be from the loss, Tom, that you were saying. It could be from an accident, a physical accident. You fall off your bike, right? You get into a car wreck. That's trauma. It could be the breaking up of a relationship. That's emotional trauma, right? And all those, or mentally, again, you get triggered, you're in the abyss. All those kinds of traumas disconnect us from spirit. And in the healing arts, it's perhaps the greatest gift is to reconnect to spirit with a technique. Because spirit rules everything. It always has, it always will. But in our world, we forget. We forget about spirit. It's like, oh, no, I gotta go to Starbucks. I don't have time for spirit. What the hell is that? No way. Right? So it's the insanity of our world. And right now our world is really a material place, right? That's our challenge. It's how do we dance in the material world and still be a spiritual being. right? Right, because right now, most people, oh, what's my goal? Well, I want to get some money, honey, right? And we embark on the journey of finding ways to make money. Oh, well, let's go get quiet. No, I got to go to my other job. See, right, we always put things in the way of connecting to spirit. We're we have PhDs of that, right? We're masters of
Limitation.
yeah, it is a limitation.
Yeah,
See,
you're masters of limitation. That's what this reality
exactly.
has come to be, basically. The thing is what people don't understand is when somebody flips you the bird or somebody pushes you buttons or whatever, that's all self-induced. The problem is you think somebody else is doing that to you. Nobody does anything to you. You attract it because of where you're at on your belief system, definitions and emotions and stuff like that. And all that does is gives you a moment of clarity of, okay, I've attracted this. What is it that I do prefer? Let me focus on that instead. That's what that's all about. And if you understand that kind of stuff, you say, okay, thank you for this, because even though it sucks, it gives me a better understanding or more clarity about where I'm at. So I have an idea of where I want to point my compass to where I want to be. That's what that's all about. That's what life's all about.
Come on up here. There's plenty of room up here.
So when someone brings their trauma and drama to your space, by doing this practice, you have created a bubble around you that kind of helps not get brought into their trauma and drama?
That's one way of putting it. Or another way of putting it is that every time you do this practice of peace, you're emptying your own stress cup. So when negativity comes toward you, see, right now, all our cups are full. They're maxed out. So that one drop from the dropper, right? We all become drama kings and queens, right? And we flip out. So this practice of peace starts to empty the cup, so you have more room to absorb whatever physical things occur from this planet on a daily basis. Your stress level gets lower and lower and lower. And then you could absorb more stress without flipping out. And then you're on your way of changing.
Transmutation.
Exactly. But you see, we don't really have, this kind of a teaching isn't readily available. I mean, this is so simple. Start with 11 rounds, work your way up to 21, right? If you really have the time and your lovingness, go to 108 times a day in one sitting. If you get up to that level, look out. Curly from the Three Stooges? You're going to be vibrating like that.
So how do you, these are all identifications. What you're saying is, you're asking people to identify or not to identify with the triggers, or with somebody coming in your space and you identify with their bird, or or their emotions. And so in this state of living in a non-identified state, then, so we don't all have to walk around like Curly, which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying this is good or bad, either one of these places.
I'm just having fun,
Yeah, it's that identification that we somehow we identify with something that's outside of ourselves, even if it's coming to 108.
Well, it's really not identifying with anything outside. It's just awareness of our own inside.
Amen.
Okay.
Right, there's a difference. So it's really has nothing to do with the outside, it's just our own internal energetics, things we've stored, things that have occurred, that, you know, we're all masters of lifting up the carpet and sweeping it under. Right, so that's the stuff that gets triggered.
A memory from a spiritual last lifetime.
Sure, it could be past karma, you know, that happens all the time. But the trigger is not coming in. The trigger is what we have that's stored, right? And boom, it gets triggered. And then the first thing we do is lift that carpet up, right? And sweep it right under that carpet, put the carpet down. Go, I dealt with that. In my own way, right? Because God forbid we take responsibility for what's stored, right? See, but that's a whole new learning tree. I mean, we don't have that skill set. Most people don't have that skill set, right? So then over time, that carpet gets a hump, you know? And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we go, oh, I'll just put a planter box over it. Because I'm smart. I'm going to do stuff like that. And then I'll put some plants on top of the box, right? And go, there, it's still cool, man, you know?
It makes stuff grow.
But then along comes the wonderful day where we go, oh, right? I can't do this anymore. We hit bottom. That's the best day of your life. Because only when you hit bottom can you deal with what the real stuff that you've been stuffing is, and you start to, then you get a shovel. And you know, you take off the planter and the box and you go, okay, you know, I gotta do some work, right? And then you shovel your stuff out, and then you feel better, right? So the point is, don't lift that carpet up anymore, right? Change your frequency, go into a method of peace, retrain yourself. So all of that, what used to happen, it doesn't occur anymore. And this is such the quick way of dealing with it, because all the other ways, psychotherapy, beating things up in therapy sessions, screaming and yelling, right? Or what many, many people do is they relive the trauma all the time. A wonderful friend of mine down in New Orleans, I go down there a lot for class, and he told me, don't keep it alive. Don't keep your trauma alive, right? So change the frequency of the trauma, and then it's gone. That's a much better place for us to be. That's what I'm suggesting.
Hey Maruti, thank you for coming. I would like to ask the question about, you might say, why am I creating this? Because we're living from the inside out, and so often our normal life is, oh, things are out there affecting us. You flip me the bird, you piss me off. But what about the question, why am I creating this? What is that notion?
I don't know, why are you creating it? That's for you to know, right? It's like, wait, I'm not a magician, right?
I have the answer. The answer to that is always going to be this, okay? You keep something alive by one thing and one thing only. It's putting your attention on it. You only get what you put your attention on. And how do we do that? We keep thinking about it all the freaking time. Or we keep telling that story. You tell it to this coworker, then you tell it to that coworker, then you tell it to your mother-in-law. What it does is, it keeps that vibration active within you. So if you want a different story, you gotta tell a different story, even before it happens. It's like Frank Zane says, is what makes me a winner is because I see myself winning ahead of time. And you can only get what you put your attention on. So you think about or talk about only what you want to experience. And that garbage, you leave it alone. Most people don't understand that when you tell your story, Don't start from where all the garbage started, just start from where you're at now and say, you know what, this is my new story. This is what I prefer, this is what I like, and eventually it's gonna come into being. Leave the old crap alone. Thank you.
You're welcome. See, the stuff comes up and out, right? It's beautiful, right?
So what you're saying is, and what he's saying is, if we attend to this lovely recognition early in the morning that we are something, we're reprogramming ourselves for the day, we're getting into a habit of ease, openness, blah, 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 all this stuff. So when we put the right blah, blah, when we put our attention on the right blah, blah, then we get this lovely stuff.
You get the blah blah consciousness. So when you're doing this little technique, I don't think about a darn thing. I'm zero. I'm at complete neutral. I'm just experiencing going up and going down. And it doesn't take but a few minutes, and the next thing you know, you're really, really soft and gentle and peaceful. And if you keep it up, then you're leaving the body and you're going into a wonderful meditation. You're connecting to spirit. And then you come back and it's like, oh, hi. It's like day one. Hello. Hello, world. I got the blah, blah going. So it's really like what Seinfeld would say, it's the show about nothing, you know? As we find our nothing in our own being, it turns out to be profound.
Yes.
Because we forgot about the nothingness, right? It's so simple, but you see how complicated we like to make it, right? You know, it's like, oh, all that complication, it's just your stuff coming up right now from this conversation. That's all it is, right? Because when we go into the neutral aspect, then I don't have an opinion. I can care less about an opinion. I
Or
don't
you
have
can even just see it, like, oh yeah, there it is, whoop-de-doo.
whoop-de-doo.
I mean, because your brain, your brain, your mind has all kinds of ideas, but you don't have to
I was
engage.
just wondering, you're saying that it doesn't take much time, so when we're going up the front, do we visualize the colors of the chakra and just
Do you
go
visualize
through
what?
the color of the
Colors.
chakra, or, I mean, you just go whipping by them, and, I mean, it's.
All of the above.
No,
Whatever.
No, the less you do, the more powerful it is.
Ah, that's what simple is.
It's the story of nothing.
Just showed it.
I mean, see how uncomplicated it could be, and how to make it, right?
You just said hello to it, and that's all you were saying, really.
Pardon me?
Your practice, what you described earlier, was that you just say hello to each of the body.
You just say hello to each one. Hello, boom, 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 boom.
Acknowledgement.
Up, down, no colors, no sounds. I mean, you could do that, but then you're more mental, right? So you're away from spirit. The whole idea is to drop emotions, physical, mental, and just connect with spirit. So if our mind is doing physical things, it's more, we're putting up obstacles to the process. Right, you see what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's so simple, just 5 minutes? Oh, okay.
Just because.
I thought you were saying hi.
I was.
Right.
I'm telling my secrets here. I have two things in response to over in the corner here. Thomas Merton says we have this moral disease of huddling together in the pale light of an insufficient answer to a question that we're too afraid to ask. And he goes into asking the right question. the question is not, why is this happening to me, or why does this trigger come up? Let's start asking a better question: who am I? What is my purpose? And start asking different questions will lead you into a more peaceful state. And just wanted to, in my personal life, I started doing yoga for a body practice because of back pain. And it was instant relief for my body. But as I continued to do yoga without any training, I did it all by myself in my back shed with no one around to train me. I started feeling like my mind is opening up. And then I started feeling like I'm more connected to my spiritual life. And so we are at once body, mind, spirit, emotion. And practicing yoga, having the body practice opens up the chakra in your body, and visualizing this current, and I'm just thinking, well, yeah, that's what I'm doing when I'm like Mula Bandha and all the bandhas that you do. And so I don't know if in your practice you try to like tighten those, but I know that I spiritually, when I've done yoga and my chakras are physically open, that they're more available to be spiritually open also. So do you tighten, or you just think?
No, I'm not doing anything with the bandhas. The bandhas are a word for locks. They lock up the energy, or you become aware of the energy. There's one at the tailbone, one at the heart, and the other third one, the main one's at the throat. So you lock them up, and then you activate them. You activate everything. I'm not talking about stuff like that. I'm just saying.
Hello.
Hello. Yo, hello. Tailbone, pubic bone, belly, chest, throat, third eye, crown. Crown, back of the head, neck, in between the scapulas, arch of the back, sacrum, tailbone. Hello. I love you. Yeah, I'm not even saying that. I'm just going, hello.
But I do hear the correlation, and that if you do this, hello, the body will, there's a connection with the body that will open that up, and everything else, so
Totally.
all these things.
And
So you start with hello, and then the other things open as well.
Yes, and it happens automatically.
Yes.
And
What I
if
heard
you're all familiar with the concept of Kundalini energy?
Heard of it.
No? Heard of it? It's your core energy, basically. It's your divine energy that operates the body. So a lot of people want to access Kundalini energy because it's incredibly spiritual. Well, 108 times a day, this practice for 5 months, and you will start to really get in touch with that Kundalini energy in a gentle, peaceful, safe way. At no extra charge. Thank you.
Do you see why I enjoy Maruti? He's funny. I told you.